we warned you. We warned you it was going to be like this. And so if you are caught off guard, you haven't been paying attention, but that's okay because you're paying attention now. And if you're watching this show, you're definitely paying attention. Now, here's the thing. We look to our democratic leadership, our elected officials, to lead. It's a part of the word leadership, lead. And so I think a lot of us were expecting after the election, when Kamala Harris didn't win, that they were going to be meeting somewhere in a room, on a Zoom, at an arcade, in a cafe. I don't care. We thought they were going to be meeting somewhere and coming up with a plan. I know that I reached out to everybody that I knew and said, hey, now's a time where you want to get all of your ducks in a row. You want to make sure that your mental, physical, spiritual, mental health is in order so that you can fight what's to come. Right. And so I just assumed that the Democrats were going to be doing their version of that. Flash forward to now, and it seems like everybody has been caught flat-footed. And the people who have been rising to the occasion right now are not necessarily our Democratic leaders. Some of them, yes, I want to give a shout out to the ones who are. Thank you. So very few of you, AOC, you're one of them. But our influencers, the moms, the people who have been sounding the alarm for the last 2-3 years on Project 2025, who have been saying, hey, this is what is to come. And many of us have felt a little bit crazy, like we're screaming into the void. And so now we all see that elections have consequences, not just for MAGA, but for us as well. I said to people, it doesn't matter if you are in a blue state or a red state, they are coming for everyone. And so this idea that somehow Donald Trump was not actually going to follow Project 2025, no, hello, we are in the year of the project. So if you're watching this show, I need you to be one of the people who snaps out of it and understands that this is the moment where we actually have to make things happen. So we're going to get organized. And to start with that, today's show, my guest, I'm incredibly excited to have her. Her name is Reecie Colbert, and she has it's Reecie with the Receipts. Which I absolutely love. But she also has a show on Instagram on Sirius XM. She is a Instagram influencer, and I'm so excited that she is here with me today because we have a lot to talk about, and she has been crushing it. She has not missed a beat. So without further ado, I'm going to bring her on in. There you are. Hey, Reecie.
Hey, Maya. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, for taking time, because you have been incredibly busy trying to keep people up to date on everything that is happening right now. And so I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we get started, are you a lifelong Politico, or how did you end up in this work?
Well, not by trade or training per se. I've always had a passion for politics, but my formal background is actually in finance, in business economics from UCLA and Northeastern. And my day job has always been in finance and project management. So coming into the media space was something that more kind of fell on my lap because of the things that I was doing in terms of the advocacy that I was doing for Vice President Kamala Harris and educating people about the disinformation that was targeting Democrats. And so that kind of took hold. People took notice and people invited me on their shows. And from there, I've been on Sirius XM Urban View for going almost 5 years now. And the Reecie Colbert Show on Sirius XM is turning 2. Or just turned to yesterday. So I'm really excited that even though I'm not a journalist by training, I'm in this media space to kind of shake things up a little bit and, give voice to people who just want it raw, unfiltered. And as Joe Madison, who is the godfather of Urban View says, I try to put it where the goats can get it.
And you absolutely do that. And so I think our viewers need to see what that looks like. So Sam, if you could roll one of the clips that we have of Reecie.
Hey, MAGA Republicans. Donald Trump is out here acting like y'all some weak ass, hoe ass, punk ass bitches. He has unilaterally paused funding on trillions of dollars of legally appropriated funds from Congress for loans and for grants. And last I checked, y'all motherfuckers are supposed to be a co-legal branch of government.
So yeah. I love this clip, and I consume voraciously everything that you put out. Can you talk about a couple of things? One, I want to point out to everybody the fact that you came at this because you're passionate about it. And so anybody, regardless of what their original line of work is, they can take that talent into this space and do it boldly and succeed at it. So I hope that inspires people who are watching.
Yeah.
But can you talk just how you go about tracking and following all this information and then deciding what is the message that needs to get out about this particular issue at this particular time? How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, to your first point, I do want to say back in 2019, people would come to me and they would be like, hey, let's collaborate. And I was like, hey, do your own thing so that more of us can be out here educating people about Kamala Harris, because there was a media blackout behind her. So some of the influencers that you see, I told them like, hey, go out there and make your own stuff. So yes, anybody can do it. And we need all the voices speaking up in a time like this. But in terms of what I decide to tackle, I really try to see what isn't being said already. Like I don't want to necessarily just be the millionth person to state the obvious. I try to figure out like, okay, connect the dots in a way that people aren't necessarily approaching it. Or, sometimes it's not as popular to touch certain topics, even though, it requires more explaining, or there's disinformation that's surrounding it. And people don't really want to touch it because they don't want to get their head bitten off. So usually I choose to tackle the things that are permeating but kind of untouched, or the things that, it's being talked about, but I feel like not from the angle that I want to approach it.
I like that. And I think everybody needs to approach it that way as well, because we do need to hear those different perspectives. And I think that's what brings a more robust messaging into the space.
Exactly. We all have our different perspectives. And so it's like, I'm a Black woman. I'm a mom. I'm a career woman. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a wife. I'm all these things. And I bring that perspective. And a lot of people that I collaborate with, I'm on the Clay Kane show. He is a Black, same gender loving man. And he has all of these different perspectives of his background in Philly. And then he lives in New Jersey. So, and then my co-host on my show, she's a Black woman. She suffered from a traumatic brain injury. She's a veteran. Oh. And so every space that I enter, it's always about, we all bring something important to the table. And I don't try to speak for everybody. I just try to be authentic, and then what people can identify with, they take from it, and then hopefully it inspires them to think a little bit deeper about how things impact them.
I love that. When you do videos and you're speaking directly to MAGA, because I love it when you do that. Because it's a strange space to enter into, because obviously, as we know, they're potentially violent, they're aggressive, they're in people's chats, they're in the DMs, what gives you, I guess, I almost said cojones, and I'm just like, I don't know why that's the word that came to mind.
Yeah, I feel
but what inspires you to just say, I'm going to take it directly to them?
Well, I just take it directly to anybody who needs to hear it. I just have smoke for everybody. I've battled with every corner of the internet, probably. The only people I've ever backed down from was the K-pop people. I said, you know what, abort this shit. I got y'all different kind of crazy. And I'm not invested in K-pop to do battle with y'all. So yeah, but I mean,
are you not a BTS fan, or
I won't say I'm not a fan. I'm not familiar with it. So I had just made a comment and they ripped my head off, and I said, it's okay. That's okay. Cause it's not my judge. I'm not into it, and I'm not going to get into it. So I'm not going to argue, So, but other than them, I haven't backed down yet from a fight. So, I'm not scared of them. Like, they ain't nobody to me. So it's really not a big deal. Now, sometimes when people ask me questions like this, or when I hear people say, oh, Reecie is so brave, I'm like, Am I unhinged for not thinking that this is a big deal? Like for me, it's just like, this is my opinion. I put it out there, like it or not. But I mean, I ain't scared of them. And the reality is that everybody is talking to them in some way, right? But not everybody is being truthful with them. Not everybody is calling them out on their shit. You know, there's coddling and there's empathizing, and yet there's not a lot of truth telling. And so if I can kind of penetrate that space, then cool. But also, you know, they're not necessarily my target audience, even though I'm kind of, you know, goading them a little bit. It's the people that are listening to me so that they're more armed with how they have these conversations with their MAGA sister and brethren. They may not be sister and brethren in ideology, but they break bread with some of these people. So that's more so where I'm going with it, is just trying to put a little bit more out there for people to chew on.
I like it because in a sense, it's almost like training videos, messaging videos for other people to then take into their neighborhoods, their workplaces, because this is a conversation that people are going to have to start having, as it is now affecting white people who thought that it wasn't going to affect them. I think that was one of the videos that you made this week. I don't know if that's the clip that we have.
I said it's a war on white people. And I think they need to hear that. You know, they need to hear that. It's not just us. Like, we're the pretext, we're the excuse, but it's a war on them. It's always been, there's always, and you know, Bernie Sanders calls it class, not race, and this, that, and the other. But the reality is, it's just as much a war on white people as it is on us. So that's what I'm saying. People got to tell them that, you know, y'all ain't even suited up, and they coming to battle against y'all. At least we're suited up and we're preparing for it. What y'all gonna do? So yeah, that's the kind of stuff where I feel like we got to put more of this stuff out there, because otherwise it's just all centered in a way that makes it seem like they have it figured out, and we have to figure out how to reach them on their terms. And no, we don't.
Oh, also, no one else is telling them this. Like, I haven't had a chance to check and see what's going on Fox News and, you know, News Nation and OAN, if that still exists, can't remember. But no one is telling them this. So I'm actually very curious how a lot of folks have reacted to the Medicaid portal being down this week, or to the potential that their food stamps are no longer being funded and things like that. So I think a conversation is getting started online, I'm guessing, this week. And we are pre-taping, everybody. So who knows what's going to happen between now and we're taping this and when this actually goes live, because we do have RFK Jr., who here's the thing. Actually, what is your take on RFK Jr. and the fact that somehow the wellness community has gotten in bed with also the party that has Vivek Ramaswamy, who is a pharma bro?
Right. Oh my gosh. And nothing makes sense anymore at all. RFK is unhinged. I mean, didn't he confess to leaving a dead? Was it a dead bear? Or what?
I think it was a bear.
It was a whole ass bear. How did you even come across a bear to kill it and then leave it in Central Park? That's crazy. Like, there are so many things. Like, remember when things used to be disqualifying? Like, I'm old enough to remember where, you know, if you hollered a certain way, Howard Dean, he got excited and they was like, oh, his career is over. Like, we used to be very petty in this country in terms of how we disqualify people. And like, now dead bears and brainworms and other stuff, like, there's no line that Republicans can't cross. And even though he's not really a Republican, it's all quite strange. And it's all very dangerous. It's all very
incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And you called out, I think you called out leadership, right? I feel like I saw a video where you're like, you need to block every single nominee. Like, there can't be a single senator voting for him. Like, what do you make of all of these senators who are, because there's usually 8 or so, it seems, who are voting for these nominees? And I'm just like,
I mean, you know, I don't expect much of Dems. I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, The reality is they've never been brass knuckles as an entire party. You have scrappy ones. You mentioned AOC earlier. We got Congresswoman Crockett and some other really, really good ones. Many good ones. I won't say some other. There are a lot of really good scrappy ones. But that's just not really their judge. So I'm not going to necessarily get bent out of shape because a handful of them, vote for somebody who's going to get confirmed anyway. I think that there's just this idea of like, well, the president gets to pick his cabinet and this guy isn't completely insane, so I'll vote for him, or this woman isn't. That's what I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I don't think that we have the Democratic Party in 2024 or 25 that we had in 2017, which was resist, resist, resist. I think this version of the Democratic Party is like, well, this is what you guys voted for. And to some degree, I'm not 100% mad at that. I'm just like, this is what people voted for. Like, people had the choice. We had the numbers. We had 6 million people stay home from 2020. So I'm not entirely mad about the Democratic Party not like being the March on Washington party of 2017. But at the end of the day, Democrats get blamed for everything, no matter what. So they could be resisting and get blamed. They could roll over and get blamed. They got to figure something out with that. But my strategy, and I made a video about this, is we need to be pressuring in these vulnerable Republicans. The House majority was decided by 7,400 votes. That's it. Out of 140 million votes cast. And by the way, the Republicans won the popular vote. So I know we talk a lot about gerrymandering, but we've gotten to the point where Republicans are winning the national popular vote in terms of the White House and in terms of the House. That's appalling. When they ran on national abortion bans, they ran on all these things that a majority of the country doesn't agree with. And so much effort has been put into holding the Democrats accountable, making sure the Democrats have this policy or this litmus test and this, that, and the other. And no pressure is being put on Republicans, even though they are hanging on by a thread. And so my strategy is, hey, okay, we can dump on Democrats, great, fine. But the reality is there are people who probably want to get reelected in a year and some change from now. Let's try to work on them, because the Republican caucus is not 100% united, and they have a very slim majority. So there's leverage points that we can utilize. But if we're only directing our attention on the Democrats, then they're getting off scot-free, and they're the problems, and they being the Republicans.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think it's about changing a Republican leader's mind. But you point out that it is about making sure they know they can lose their job. That is that right there is more motivating because they're going to try to cling on to power no matter what. The margins that you point out in your video, which is why I love it, Reecie with the receipts. She always comes with the numbers, and now I know it's because you have a finance background. And so you've got the numbers. Is these margins, they're so small. And one thing that really disappointed me about Democrats is that we think about the popular vote and we go, oh, it's the Electoral College that matters. But here's the thing. Donald Trump can now point to all the people who didn't vote, because a lot of people sat out the vote or voted for third party because they're like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm in California. I can vote third party. But then that then diminishes and dilutes Kamala Harris's voting base. And so it makes it seem as if he's got this mandate, when it's actually, some people, it's not that they just were like, well, my vote doesn't count. But it does, because they'll point to the popular vote and say, oh, there's a mandate.
That's right. I mean, that's why all this stuff about, oh, there was a realignment. It's not a realignment. It's called voter apathy. And unfortunately, you have like 30-something% of the country that's always going to vote Republican, 30-something% of the country that's always going to vote Democrat. And then you have the rest who may or may not vote. Now, of that rest, maybe 10% votes one way or the other. That's not the swing vote per se. That's the swing vote or not. So unfortunately, when people just sit out, then it looks like a voter realignment. And in some degrees, if you say the voter realignment is that we have a shrinking pool of voters, and unfortunately Republicans are more motivated to vote more reliably, then that would be true. But it's not that everybody is just so apathetic. There's a huge disinformation campaign that's waged, a dissuasion campaign that has been waged for years. And the cumulative effect of that is what we're seeing. Each election, it gets more and more powerful because they never stop working on dissuading people. And unfortunately, the conversion campaign that Democrats run ends up also dissuading people from voting instead of them running the kinds of campaigns where they're about turning out their base. That's what Republicans do. So there's all these, we can debate strategy and all that stuff, but the reality is that Republicans have complete control. They have complete domination in terms of just the simple math. Now, like I said, are they united all the time? No. And that's where we could kind of put a chink in that armor. And we did that in 2017 with the town halls and saving Obamacare. And we can do that again, but we cannot do that by focusing on the Democrats.
So now that the Republicans have control of basically every branch of government, you mentioned previously that they always find a way to blame Democrats anyway.
Yeah.
Which is the case. But let's think about now here going forward, because we know we're great predictors of what's going to happen, right?
Yes.
And so maybe this time around people will listen. Given that they've got control over all of the branches, how do you think people's behavior needs to shift going forward?
People as in like us, like the public?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think people, I think part of what needs to happen, we saw it happen, right? Something happens, there's backlash. And then the administration kind of retreats a little bit. They're like, oh, okay, they're right now, all of this stuff is like going balls to the walls, seeing how much it can get away with, how quickly. And the people that are loud and say, we're not going for this, then they're like, oh, okay, we'll let y'all have that. But what people are quiet about, that's the stuff that's going to go away a lot quicker. So I feel like the strategy is what people need to be doing is they need to be loud about everything. And I know that you have people saying, oh, they're trying to, overwhelm you. And so that you're just confused. And so that, so that you don't know what to respond to. I'm in the camp of respond to every damn thing. Don't let up on anything. Don't let them feel like, oh, okay, we're going to pick our battles. Hell no. Like, be on their case. Be on their case. Now, not everybody needs to be on everybody about everything, but sure, if this is your swim lane, this is your area of focus, then anything that falls in that, if you're a veteran, anything that involves veterans, if you're a trans advocate, anything that involves trans, like whatever the case may be, then you need to be relentless on those issues. So we have to realize that they're disciplined. I don't think that they're necessarily competent, but you don't have to be competent to break things. But they are disciplined in the sense of this is what they are trying to do. And they're going to do everything in their power, even things that aren't in their power, to make it happen. And if we aren't disciplined, then they're just going to run all over us.
Yeah, and it's the discipline piece of things that really gets to me, because we did see this coming and we knew it was coming, so we could have been prepared. And they're on this God-given mission, literally, because we all know how much the evangelical movement has managed to co-opt the Republican Party. And so they're literally on a God-given mission. So they have the energy to keep going forward, and we need to approach it with that same energy.
Right.
Because I've got a lot of people telling me, like, I'm exhausted. This is a lot. And I'm like, I get it. But one thing I was like, for the last year, I was like, y'all, I'm telling you, we need to leave it on the floor now, because it's going to be 10 times harder to do this if we do not win. Like, history is written by the winners. So we are going to put ourselves in a very terrible position, right? So I was screaming that, not screaming it, but making a lot of videos with a lot of emphasis.
Right. Very emphatic, yes.
like, yeah. Would you guys listen to me right now so I don't, I just wanted to be able to have a normal life where I could do normal things, because I didn't come to politics because I was like, hey, this is what's going to be fun for me to do. Like, I was living my best life doing stand-up comedy. Like, yes, I have a poli-sci degree, but I also have an MFA in poetry, and I just want to sit around and write poetry and tell jokes all the time. And instead, I got to be up here talking about fascism. And I'm like, really? Is this what I have to do for the rest of my life, is talk about fascism? But now it's a fight for our survival. Right? Like, this is no longer something that the average person can ignore, as I'm sure they are seeing this week. And a lot of people are seeing the, like, oh, he wouldn't actually do that, or he's not capable of doing that. What do you think about this? Like, it seems like people don't have an understanding of how evil someone can be.
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you ever have those conversations with people where you're like, somebody can like literally pretend to be X, but be a complete malignant narcissist and act as Y? Like, do you find yourself having to like let people know bad people exist?
Well, I find myself saying, yeah, okay, legal analysis is good, and I think that's important, but these people don't give a damn. Like, you talking like these people care. Like, they don't. They don't care about norms. They don't care about the legal things. Like, there's all this reporting about, the judge has halted the freeze on funding. And I'm like, well, do we know if they're adhering to it? Like, you've reported it, like, oh, that's the end of it. Like, okay. And so what are they doing with that? Like, the judge halted the birthright citizenship executive order. Okay. So do we know if this administration is still issuing out Social Security cards or births? Like, those are the kinds of things where it's like, okay, yeah, I know what the law is saying. They know what the law is saying, but what are they doing? And I think that that's what we have to really emphasize to people, is what is being done, what is actually happening, and follow up, and not just think, okay, problem solved, crisis averted. Like, what's actually happening? So yeah, I think that people really underestimate that this is not about what is supposed to happen and how it's supposed to happen and what guardrails are in place. And I think that's part of the reason why, this whole democracy is on the ballot didn't really resonate with people, because people fundamentally believe, and mostly rightfully so, that our institutions aren't going to protect us. So when you run on this idea of protect the institutions, that doesn't resonate. Because people are like, well, what the hell are these institutions doing for us? And we're seeing that bear out in the sense that these institutions can't hold up to a dictator. They can't hold up to an oligarchy. And that's why people weren't as persuaded by it. Now, y'all just made it easier for him, for your point to be proven that these institutions ain't shit. So I think we have to focus on the idea. And I said this, like you, I was screaming from the rooftops. Let's talk about citizenship. We need to make people understand that their citizenship is at stake here. It's under assault here. And it's not about birthright citizenship. Your citizenship right now is under assault if somebody can come to your home and arrest you because, oh, we're doing an immigration raid, and, oh, well, you don't have your birth certificate, you don't have your Social Security card, you don't have your passport, so I'm hauling your ass off to jail. And you can figure it out from there. You tell your mama to bring your passport down, or your girl. You know what I mean? So it's like, when there's all this authority to snatch from you your freedom, then is that citizenship? I don't think it is. And I don't think that people really understand how much all of these things that they're trying to do with funding and with immigration and all that stuff, how that is eroding all of our citizenship.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because this idea of it can't happen to me or it won't happen is, to me, such a fallacy, because it's clearly happened in the past. Like, we have this like Men in Black like type of memory where they just like flash shiny things. They're like, here's the Kardashians. Yeah. And then we completely forget about all of the fascism that happened throughout the 50s and 60s. And like, it's insane to me. And as Black women, like, we know, we have it in our blood what the country is capable of doing, right? Asian Americans have an understanding of what the country is capable of doing. And so this failure of imagination, I can't remember who says that. I want to say it's Stuart Stevens who says it, but the failure of imagination, even as you say, what this idea of somebody coming into your home and carting you away, you're like, but I'm a citizen, I was born here. Like, and like they cart people away all the time.
Yes,
who are citizens. It's happened many a times. And so, and I think what it is, it's terrifying for people, truly terrifying for people to because there was that one woman who's like, would you ever want to switch places with a Black person? And meaning as in like, oh, if it's so great, if everything's equal, would you want to switch places with a Black person? And most of the white people in the audience were like, no, actually not, right? And so it's terrifying for many people who've never had to live under fascism to have to imagine what it would be like. And those of us who have basically had to live with it our entire lives have a resilience around it. And so to me, I'm like, hey, guys, we're trying to warn you. We don't want anybody to have to live the way we've had to live.
Right.
I don't want anybody to have to go through that. Like, that's my thing. I'm like, I don't think that's helpful for anybody.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
But so, I think like it's kind of like, like as Black people, right? We have to give our kids the talk, like, oh, what to do if you're pulled over, what to do if you're in this situation, whatever. We, as a country, we need to have a talk. What to do in case of a dictatorship, which we have right now. Okay. And so I feel like people are kind of waking up to the nightmare that we're in, kind of, sort of. Some people, not everybody. But there's still, people need to be more equipped to really handle the day-to-day impact is going to have. We're only on day, what is this, 8, 9?
It's like 9. I think day 9.
Day 9. We have a long way to go, okay? And so if nobody's gonna be unscathed from this. And so I just think we have to get serious about really understanding. We have to prepare for what is to come, and that's could be, like you said, financially, health wise.
Yes, all of that.
Medicaid was shut down. I don't know if it's back up. I haven't seen reported. I guess nobody.
They said it was a glitch. The White House came out and said, they're like, oh, we didn't actually mean to shut down the portal. And it's like that kind of like,
even though they had a banner, and see, this is what the White House, they just lie. Oh, okay, no, that had nothing to do with it, but ignore the banner that said it was related to this. So they're gonna lie and just, gaslight and all this stuff. So, just whatever that I'm team procrastinator. Okay, I'm the last minute person for everything. But this for this next 4 years, don't wait till the first of the month. You might want to, my next check is gonna kick in and you might want to get
be on your A game.
Yeah, on your A game. That's simpler put. Yeah,
be on your A game. Thank you so much for joining me, Reecie. This has been incredibly enlightening for me. I like the idea of giving the country the talk. I think that is. I think you could be the person to give the country the talk. So I'd like you might just see that as your next video. So y'all, definitely please go follow her. Check out her Sirius XM show. And there it is. Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. We were just talking about how we have problems with time zones, but 3 p.m. Eastern.
So actually, it's 2 now. I need to update my website because it's 2 hours. My show used to be 1 hour at 3, but now it's 2.
Now there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's I got upgraded at the right time.
This is perfect. The world needs to hear more from you, so I'm glad that you have an extra hour to do that. So thank you for being here. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Be well. And I forgot to ask you what you do for self-care. So just one thing. What do you do to stay sane?
I like to watch TV. Not
any shows.
I like murder mysteries. I like limited series because I'm like 8 episodes. I'm tapping out. So any kind of Harlan Coben is my guilty pleasure. You watch all his British stuff?
No, I haven't. I'm like, who's that? I don't even know.
Oh my goodness, girl. It's all on Netflix. He got all the little murder mystery stuff that I like to see. So that's my judge.
All right. I will have to check it out. In the meantime, enjoy your shows.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself. Do all the self-care so that we can sustain this fight. And I'll see you out here soon.
Okay, you be well.
Thank you. This is what I need to hear how we're going to get out of this, because every time I go online, every time I watch a news program, I'm like, what is everybody doing? Because I thought you guys had this. Like, I'm doing my part. I wanted everybody to do their part, and Reecie is definitely doing her part. Real quick about the respond to everything. I agree with that. I think it's important to respond to everything. And the easiest way to do that is to create a system for yourself. I love systems. That it helps me stay on track. It helps me with the procrastination. So you should have your senators, your congressmen, all of that should be on your phone on speed dial. And you can even have in your notes app a script that you have in there that you can just copy and paste. And if it's something that you post on social media, you can post it on social media, tagging them, and you can just have little scripts for yourselves. And I'm sure there's plenty of places online that you can find some if you don't already have one. And then you can just copy paste. Every time something comes out, copy paste, and you just change, I don't like what you're doing about X bill, copy paste, send, right? That way they know that we're paying attention, because right now I think if they see people retreating or they see us not being noisy, they're going to assume that we don't care, and then not that we're overwhelmed. No, we absolutely care, and we care a lot, like the Care Bears. Remember the Care Bears? Care Bears, we care a lot. I think that's what my self-care thing is going to be right now, is watching children's cartoons before children's cartoons become PragerU children's cartoons, which is undoubtedly what the Trump administration will eventually get to. Could you imagine Saturday morning cartoons being replaced with PragerU cartoons so they can tell us that the slaves were learning skills and so therefore it was okay? Yeah, no, that's not the kind of world we want. So again, y'all, thank you for joining me. I hope nothing too crazy happened in the world between the time that we take this and when it goes live. Join the resistance. Code cyber resist. Join us. Resolute Square. I got my picture on here too. Can I get my picture on here? Guys, we got a lot of shows. Check out all of the shows. Subscribe. Follow me. Maya on Stage on all the platforms. And I will see you next week. Thank you. Good night.